Hey guys, nothingwired.com, and today we have Nikon's latest entry-level DSLR, the D3300. Now it's an upgrade of the D3200, which is very popular and sits right behind the D5300 to become the cheapest new crop of new series of DSLRs from Nikon. So first of all, let's check out the box content here. Now this kit comes with see, that's an 1855 VR2 kit lens, and the D3300 along with the kit lens will cost you just under $600 in US on Amazon.com, and just over 400 pounds on Amazon.co.uk, and about 35,000 Indian rupees on Amazon.in. You would get it for about 30,500 on Amazon.in for body only, and about 394 pounds on Amazon.co.uk. However, we did not find a listing of body only on Amazon.com, but I'm sure you will find the body only in US also a little cheaper when you do not take the kit lens here. So the box is pretty compact. The camera is small as well for a DSLR, and all these, the usual content would be there. You see the pictures and all listing of, you know, some of the supplied accessories and stuff, which I'm going to show you anyway, and then your marketing and pricing information. So I already told you the prices and all. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and open the box and show you what's inside. So first of all, on top you get the usual software CDs and your manuals and warranty cards and such. So that's the user manual. It's very important that you read this, because every camera at least have some unique feature, and you would only come to know that from this kind of guides. And then you have some support center informations here, and then your warranty cards and stuff, and all listing and all, and then view annex to CD. So there, all those are software and manual part. And then we go down here and let's first check out the camera body. So that's the D3300 body, yeah. And then you have the 1230 mAh battery. It's an ENEL14A battery. Then you have the kit lens out here. Let's see, the 18 to 55 mm kit lens, and also a quite compact kit lens. So you have this button which it goes to its usual size. You see, come down here at the max, but you can actually lock it to make it more compact, so that's effectively reducing the size. Then some other usual content, like for example, you have your round pin adapter here, which goes along with your wall adapter, this one. So there is no power cord as such, yeah. So this thing goes in here. Let's see. Oops, this thing goes in here, and the battery goes in here to charge. So there is no power cord. And then you have your data transfer ports, mini USB ports, then your AV cord, solder strap, and yeah, so that's about it. That's about the content in the box. Now let's take a look at the body of the D3300. So the body is mainly made of carbon fiber, and the tech junkies would call it carbon fiber reinforced polymer. So that's the exact name, but you can simply call it carbon fiber, which is kind of a very high quality plastic, you know, polymer material. And then you also have hints of metal here and there, like for example this part, and also you have rubbers in places where you would hold the camera so that your hand does not slip off that often. It does not have exactly a weather sealing body, and it also actually weighs much less than the predecessor 3200, and even less than the 5300. It weighs about 460 grams as opposed to about just over 500 grams of the D3200 and about 530 grams of the D5300. So Nikon's overall objective is to mainly make this camera very compact, so that you can carry a DSLR everywhere you go, just like you would do with a mirrorless or a point and shoot high zoom camera. Even that's the reason also they actually made the kit lens here quite compact. We'll come back to the kit lens just in a bit. So let's go ahead and quickly check out some of the controls and buttons that are on this camera. I'm gonna quickly take off the camera cap here, and you would see the APS-C sensor there. That's the mirror, and on the front you have the Nikon label here. You have the autofocus assist button and this nice red band. That's the signature of all Nikon DSLRs. You have an IR blaster here. You also would have one on the back, which is again a very good thing, and that would actually I'm just gonna show you that's the one. So it would actually help using the remote both from the front as well as from the back. Then you have the lens release button here, and there's the lens connect button, your FN button, and then the flash trigger button. Those are your mic, and there you see the 3300. There is no depth of field preview button anywhere. Then on top you have your that's the power lever, and then your shutter release button, the dedicated video button. That's your exposure compensation scale. It also acts as switching to aperture mode, let's say in a full manual, where rotating only the dial would actually change the shutter speed. When you press this and then rotate this, it would change the aperture. And then you have your info button that will toggle the info screen here. I'm just gonna show all those in a bit. And then you have your speakers out here, and the eyelets for your lanyard, and then your shooting mode dial. Then you have your accessory hot shoe, the flash, built-in flash. Yeah, on this side you have basically 4 ports. This one is for your remote control or your GPS, then your external headphone, and this one is your data transfer. You can also use your optional Wi-Fi kit here, and then your HDMI out. Now there is a reason that probably Nikon has created 2 flaps, because when you use this for your Wi-Fi kit, then this need to be opened all the time, because the Wi-Fi kit kind of sticks out here. So even there, in that case, this will be covered. Plus the Wi-Fi kit also is a little bulky, so it's good to have a bit of space around here. This side you have the lone SD card slot. Behind you have the usual Nikon entry-level DSLR array of buttons, really. IO blaster I showed you before. You have the a viewfinder there, and then your diopter settings, the auto exposure and autofocus lock, your primary dial, and then the 3-inch screen. It's not articulated neither in 180 degree nor on left or right side. In fact, that's one of the differences it has with the D5300. The D5300 has an articulating lens. You have your usual area of buttons here and here, all these. Yeah. Below you have the tripod mount and the battery compartment. So the battery goes in here like this. Yeah. So that's our D3300. Let's go ahead and check out the lens now. So this is the kit lens that you would get. You'd mostly get. I haven't seen the D3300 with any other kit lens, like for example 18-105 or 18-140 mm, which also come with as a kit lens with some of the higher models. So this kit lens is a new one, not necessarily optically, but at least mechanically, cosmetically, it's a new lens. So there you see, that's the original 18-55 mm lens, and you would see that this 18-55 mm lens is much compact than this one. It's also, the diameter is slightly less, I think, but then this guy goes really when you go to lock, this guy becomes much more compact than this one. There you see. So it's very compact, and again it kind of confirms and reiterates the point that Nikon wanted to make the D3300 very compact, carry everywhere, daily usage kind of a camera. So that the lens is not different from this one optically at all. The same, you see AFS a motor built in, 18 to 55 mm lens, 3.5 to 5.6, same. This one is a G lens, this one is a the VR2 lens, of course, so it's kind of has a more advanced vibration reduction. It's a DX lens, so it's meant for the crop sensor. Cannot use it on a full frame. You will see dark round on the side of the frame. Yeah, on the front side you say to take the same 52 mm filter as the original one. Yeah, and that's kind of, once you open it, that's the zoom the zoom ring, and when you change it to manual, that's your manual focus ring. You have autofocus and manual because this guy has autofocus motor built in, also vibration on or off, so no active or normal vibration, just on or off, just like the original 1855. Now let's take a closer look at some of the usability functions and user interface. So I'm gonna go ahead and attach this lens to it, so this both contact points should match, and rotate it up, and then I'm gonna insert my SD card here. It's always recommended, if you can afford, get a class 10 memory card that would help you in both that's the battery, in both getting a good burst rate as well as recording video at high definition at a very high speed. This guy records at a very high speed, a max of full HD at 60 frames per second at 37 Mbps. So class 10 SD card always helps. You see, that's the overall system there. So it's quite compact, at least more compact than the other DSLRs. However, not as compact as your mirrorless or some of the other point and shoot, even power zoom cameras. So let's go ahead and check out. So the first thing is, the moment you switch it on, the user interface gonna tell you that before taking photos, rotate the zoom ring, because it's now in locked position. You see, the moment we do this, that dialog will go away, and you will see the usual Nikon info lens there. So that's for shutter speed, that's for aperture, and that's for ISO. You can toggle your info button on or off with this. You can also go ahead and press this I to change anything. For example, there, so you can change my autofocus mode from AFA to servo to continuous, single to continuous to manual focus. Yeah, you can come back and go all these and change those kind of stuff. So there you see my image size and all. Yeah, then that's my exposure compensation scale, and the moment I do this, you see the scale here changes. Yeah, that's 0. Now when I'm in complete manual mode, and I'm going to show you all the modes in the shooting dial. When I'm complete manual mode, then rotating just this to the command dial will change the shutter speed. There you see, and when I'm pressing this one and then rotate this one, to change my aperture. Yeah, the same way when I'm in aperture priority mode, you can only change the aperture, only shutter speed, and you can change your exposure compensation as well as your ISO and stuff, but then the aperture and shutter speed pretty much remain auto. And that's a new guide mode, which actually is a salient feature of the D3300. Because Nikon has positioned this as a beginner's camera, you have a guided mode for those who are not very comfortable with this kind of cameras or DSLR. So here it basically is an auto mode, but it applies a logic depending on the situation. So for example, you want to shoot, so you go here, you want easy operations, and then see it gives you the situation scenarios. You want to click a close-up, or you want to click a sleeping face, moving subject, and all those things. So accordingly, let's say I want to click a close-up. Now in the close-up mode, so automatically it goes in the close-up mode. You can say okay, and you can then say use the viewfinder or use live mode or shoot movies. So I'm going to use the live mode. So it'll automatically start the live mode. The guide mode is very easy for beginners, and then you have auto mode, where the camera practically becomes point and shoot, You also have an auto mode without the flash, and then your some preloaded functions, like for example that's a landscape mode, some portrait mode and sport mode and macro mode and whatnot. And then you also have some effects that you can give on your photos, and these are the one. And the D3300 actually introduced 4 new effects, and one of them, and probably my favorite of them, is the easy panorama. So the D3300 is the first Nikon camera to introduce a sweep panorama, which was in Sony for like ages. Anyway, so better late than never. So you have easy panorama. You also have a total of 12 those special effect kind of pop and super vivid and color sketch and miniature effect and whatnot. I almost never use this, but if you fancy your chances and your creativity, you can always go ahead and use those. So that's about the shooting mode dial. There's a function button here. You can set it to anything, and by default it's actually set to ISO, and I would like to stay there. So once I press this and rotate this, your ISO would change. You can also keep your ISO auto and use this probably as a metering button or something, which is equally good. I like to change the metering also at times. Then here is your drive mode. You see, you have single frame, continuous. You can also use your remote with this mode, and then your live view. That's how you toggle to your live view mode, and then you have some other things here. Now let's go ahead and check out the main menu. So it's not very extensive like some of the higher end models, so you do not have options of fine-tuning most of the options. Let's say for example you have a playback menu, so you have pretty much all the playback options there, and then you have a shooting menu. So you have your image quality and stuff, so both RAW and JPEG. Then your image size is large, is 24 MP. So this guy has a 24.2 megapixel sensor, the same as the 5300. And you have your white balance settings and set picture control. Now for example you have your white balance settings, but then you cannot go ahead and you can adjust it just a bit there for here. But some of the things, like for example autofocus and all, you cannot fine adjust. So you have color space and active delighting, and then your noise reduction, ISO sensitivity, it goes up to 12,800, and in high it goes up to 25,600. You have an autofocus area mode, which will tell you which will actually let you set different autofocus for live view and viewfinder. So viewfinder, I generally have my 3D tracking option open. That's one of the best autofocus modes I've seen on any cameras. And then for live view I have either the subject tracking or the wide area autofocus mode, depending on what I'm shooting. Now note that the D3300 cannot recognize motion, so it won't automatically focus wherever you point the camera. However, you can track, you can lock the focus on a subject, and that it will keep on tracking that, like for example your kid. But then it's kind of not very fast. So if your kid moves slowly enough and it has a high contrast, it's wearing a high contrast cloth compared to the, that basically sets it sufficiently apart from the background that it does a good job. But anyway, for entry-level camera, that's cool. So you have the usual 3 meterings and your movie settings. Now you can see I generally shoot at 30 fps because that kind of gives me a manageable file size, but you can also shoot at 60 fps. Then your movie quality, then microphone on, manual movie settings on. Now this is an important thing. If you want to be able to change your shutter speed and some of the other settings, you cannot change your aperture in 3300, just like you can in case of the 5300 or in case of the 7100 even. But you can change your shutter speed, you can also change the ISO, but to be able to change those you need to set this to on, manual movie settings to on, and then you would set this to full manual, not to other modes, full manual, and then start, let's say, and then you start your live view and then start recording. Now you can simply change this and there see your shutter speed changes. You cannot change your aperture, you have to change your aperture before start shooting, and then you can use your FN button to change the ISO. And a good thing is that the camera at least show you the preview of what is being changed. So for example, when I'm shooting this, it actually, see, it's making it dark, so it actually lets you know thankfully that you know how the movie is gonna be made. However, it's a sad thing that you cannot change the aperture like some of the higher end models, like for example the D800. Anyway, so that's how it is. Then coming back to the menu, so you have movie settings and all those stuff, and then you have some system settings here. Yeah, you have some retouch menu. You also have your recent settings menu, but then there is no my menu option, so you cannot exactly save a custom menu on here. However, you also do not have any custom shooting mode here, which is kind of one of the drawbacks, because that does not take much, does it? Even one custom settings here would really make me happy, because that in that I can have my all custom settings saves and then save it as you know, just like a preload mode like this MASP. Now every time I shoot a different image or a video, image mostly, I need to go to one of the preloads and then I manually set the settings. If I'm fine-tuning something, then I would like to be able to save that as a custom setting. So they generally come in the recent models nowadays, but being an entry-level model, you have to omit something. So some are important for some aren't. The D3300 is fast and responsive, and at no time did we experience any lag in response from the physical keys as well as from the UI. The camera is good to hold and lightweight compared to other DSLRs. 85x magnified viewfinder has 95% coverage, so make sure that you know that the photo will include that 5% extra what you see through the viewfinder. That's not very important for a beginner, but then it you just have to see that it might omit some important information or bring something extra actually. The LCD has average brightness with below average sunlight visibility. The diamond shaped autofocus system is basic and you cannot expect too much from it. The 11-point focus system has a centermost one cross type focus point, and you'll see the difference in operation. I would always focus using the central autofocus point and then hold the autofocus lock button to refocus. Having said that, the peripheral focus points worked fairly fast, at least under enough light. Under low light they hunt a bit. The hunting gets worse when you use the live view due to the contrast detection system, but good enough to shoot still subjects. The 3300 does not track movements on its own, so if you have it focus on something and then take that something out of the focal plane, the camera won't automatically focus on it, neither during still in viewfinder nor during a movie recording. You either press the shutter release button to lock the focus, which at times is nasty, especially under low light, or use the subject tracking feature to lock on your subject. Here, if your subject is sufficiently in contrast with the background, the tracking works well. Don't move the subject too fast or move it through an similarly colored background, or you might leave the tracking square behind with the background. The D5300 boasts of a better battery life than both the 3200 and the 5300, and we agree. We got about 515 shots plus about 40 minutes of full HD video in one go. The JPEG images are nicely detailed at 100% under enough light. They stay significantly similar even under low light up to about ISO 800. Thanks to the absence of OLPC, the details are slightly sharper, although not totally devoid of noise, especially under low light. They are also adequately sharp Saturation and hue are natural, in fact too honestly natural at times. There is noise beyond ISO 1600, but till 3200 the images are perfectly usable. The compressed raw images are good enough with very good amount of detail. Details are also recoverable from shadows in post-processing up to a very good level. The noise level is perfectly fine for printing up to about ISO 800, as I said before. Beyond that, you might want to reduce some of those in post-processing. Beyond ISO 3200 are mostly web worthy only. Nikon has always had a commendable DR processing engine at dynamic range, and the D3300 is no different. You have pretty good ranges across the exposure in auto mode. The video quality is brilliant across the frame. There is no fuzziness, no discoloration. The videos are sharper than the stills and are actually, although the D3300 does not use the whole sensor to record videos, we found them amazingly detailed. We also hardly noticed any moire unless we deliberately try to introduce some. The compressed audio level, however, is not very wind friendly. So before giving it a verdict, let's check out the good things and bad things about the Nikon D3300. Some of the good things is that this guy does not have an optical low pass filter, so your images will be slightly sharper than, let's say, the D3200 or some of the other similarly priced cameras which has the optical low pass filter in front of the sensor. But then on the flip side is that the video shows just a bit of moire. The number two good thing is that it's fairly compact for a DSLR, including the more compact kit lens. Now it also weighs just about right and with a very good hole, so it's quite an ergonomically good camera. Number three is that now you can record full HD at 60 FPS. So those are some of the good things. Some of the also the images are very good quality, the usual Nikon standard, so they did not compromise on the quality, the image and video quality for the D3300 just because it's an entry-level camera. So some of the flip side is that one of the thing is that you do not have a flip out LCD here. Number two is that well, it's an entry-level camera, so probably that's expected, but only one cross type autofocus point. Number three is that the video mode cannot detect motion. You have to lock on the subject to be able to follow that. So those are some of the concise. Well, now talking about the competition, this price point is fairly crowded, but it's fairly easy to answer on behalf of the Nikon fans and those who already have a Nikon ecosystem, meaning if you have already, you're using a higher end Nikon model and you already have Nikon lenses and speed lights and other Nikon components. For those two kind of folks, yes, you should definitely go for the Nikon D3300, maybe because of maybe as your secondary camera, or even if you're new and you absolutely love Nikon, your friends use Nikon, they tell you should use Nikon and all those stuff, and then you want to go for an entry-level camera to start with. Definitely this is a great entry-level camera, and it's probably the most forward-looking entry-level DSLR from Nikon till date. For Canon fans, if you already have a Canon ecosystem, then you do not need to go and get the Nikon D3300, because obviously if you have a Canon ecosystem, that you're fairly stuck with Canon. But even the 1200D is good enough, and even 600D also is priced around the same. So both 600D and the 1200D are good enough so that you do not have to go and change your perception to get a Nikon. Now if you do not have a Canon and Nikon and you're fairly open to suggestions, you have lots of options even beyond Nikon and Canon. So in Nikon at this price point, you have Nikon D3300, of course, and then if you go let's say about plus minus 5,000, you might also be able to grab the Nikon D5100 somehow, but then we won't go to that. So Nikon D3300, in Canon you have two cameras, 600D and the 1200D. You also have the Pentax K500. You also have the Sony Alpha A58, and then those are about the DSLR. You also have some entry-level mirrorless cameras, and then some very premier point-and-shoot cameras like the RX100 series, for example. So now let's check out the DSLR versus the other formats. So about the point-and-shoot, RX100 is a very good camera, amazing details and everything, but then that has a fixed zoom. So I'm assuming that you want to buy DSLR mainly because of the ecosystem, because of the lens collection and everything, because it's the optic that ultimately actually matters and not always the camera. So moving on to the mirrorless cameras, where they are more compact and they are also interchangeable lens cameras. But then the main thing with the DSLR is that you get what you see, plus again the ecosystem. It has a huge ecosystem, the mirrorless cameras still to catch up there. Not many lenses. Of course you can use adapter, and then you can use DSLR lenses on many mirrorless cameras, but then using adapter is not really my thing. If I had my way, then I would probably have less and less of air and glass between my sensor and the lenses. Anyway, so coming to the DSLR, fine, but then you can always get a mirrorless camera to start with, and these days mirrorless cameras are really becoming very good, and the ecosystem is also increasing rapidly. But for comparison's sake, we'll actually only compare this to the DSLRs mainly. So with the Canon 1200D, the 1200D is also a great beginner's camera, and that's probably a slightly better camera fit for beginners than the D3300, mainly because the 1200D does not have many features to intimidate you. It also has a fairly good guided mode, plus a phone app that can guide you and that can teach you on the go. But this guy actually has more feature. This guy actually has better video features and some of the other things, and even we see the sharpness of the images is slightly more. So probably between the 1200D and the 3300D, D3300, sorry, if I'm not an absolute beginner, I might go for this one. But if I'm a beginner and I want to start small, then 1200D is a perfect choice. Between 600D and D3300, it's a difficult choice, but I would still say the main advantage of the 600D is its flip out LCD here, with which you can take selfie, or you can also take it's great for video as well. But 600D has become now a fairly old camera, so probably even then I would stick to this one. With the Sony Alpha 58, that's probably one of the closest competitors to this one. That also has a great design, almost similar specs, however that does not shoot a video at 60 fps. The max it goes is 30 fps. That has a translucent mirror technology, which will allow you to record videos using your face detection autofocus system. Not here. This only has a contrast detection system, and hell, it does not even detect movement. So it's pretty difficult, and probably on a good day it can go to either side. With the Pentax K500, the main advantage I found with the K500 is its 100% viewfinder coverage. This guy only has a 95%. That does not make much of a difference for a beginner. See, 95% and 100% difference. But well, I found that the image quality with this one, and just because Nikon has this amazing lens collections, if you are starting a good DSLR culture, then you'll have to look at those ecosystems. So those all are about the comparisons. Of course, the comparisons are fairly subjective according to me. You might have some other opinions. Please feel free to comment. So that's it, guys. That's our review of the Nikon D3300. It's a great camera. It has some great feature as compared to some of the other entry-level DSLRs. Plus, it's one of the most forward-looking DSLR cameras I have seen. And the best thing about the D3300 is that Nikon did not make it thinking that this is an entry-level camera. Nikon made it thinking as a step down from the D5300 and not necessarily an entry-level camera, and that's why you get those great feature like an absence of OLPF and your full HD 60p recording and all the core features that you would get on the D5300, and it omits only the cosmetic and the outer features that actually calls for when you step down the price. Let's say the flip out lens, the flip out LCD here, and some of the other things, but inside the sensor, the image processing engine and everything remains same. So that's a great thing. If you like this video, please hit the like button below, ask anything related to the camera and we'll try to answer them all, and please subscribe to our channel for more such awesome content in future.